This is just a quick video I'm knocking up for the auto event, so excuse any blurry video. The audio was very bad, that's why I'm re-recording it here. In the box you get the arm, the nuts and bolts and things, and this cylinder is filled with some kind of expanding wax or other substance, and that's what does the actual movement. The point of this is to open the vents in your greenhouse when it gets to a certain temperature. Here's the spring-loaded arm, and the first thing you need to do is put in a couple of grub screws. I think it calls them studs. They go in and secure the piston to the spring-loaded arm. The arm is spring-loaded, so it's very difficult to work with. It's constantly trying to chop your fingers off. The first thing to do is you put the piston onto the tube and you push it in quite firmly. Like so. You can put this screw in the back now, but you're supposed to do it later. The next thing you need to do is you need to fit the grub screws in. It's very difficult to do because of the spring-loaded arm, so here I use my legs. I just wedge it in between there to keep it in place so that I can screw it in. It's still pretty tricky, that's why there's some jump cuts in here. I dropped the screws a few times. So they go in. I just hand tighten them at first, later on obviously tighten them a little bit with a screwdriver as well. And that's the other side. Okay, now I'm putting the end knob in. This is what adjusts the opening and closing, so don't do it tight here, just put it in and we'll adjust it later. These metal things are what are effectively clamps. This auto vent can work with a few different greenhouses, and there's a few different ways of mounting it. For mine, Hull's popular 86 model, it works in what it calls clamp mode. How that works is you use these two pieces of metal, you attach them to the plastic plates, and they act as a kind of clamp. It was hard to imagine at first. It's a little bit of a weird mounting mechanism, but it does mostly work. So what you do is you bolt this onto here, and you basically sandwich that around the lip of the windowsill, and that's how it holds on. So you don't use the holes in the sill itself, and that's at least for my greenhouse. Yours may be different. Check your own instructions. The plates are tapped, so that means the bolt will go into them directly. There's not a bolt, a nut for this. It's just a bolt that goes into that plate. I found the easiest way to arrange it so you could screw it in easily was to have one of the plastic plates at right angles to the other one, and then you can get them in a bit easier. I still dropped them a few times. The way this works, the bolts don't go very deep. They can't go very deep because if they do, they would break and foul the glass when they're mounted. So you have to screw them in without the plate falling off, but you can't screw in too far because they just don't go too far. And if you do, you can't then sandwich it around the lip, because you need to get the lip in this little bit here that I'm indicating. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Here I'm just offering it up to the window to make sure I'm not doing anything obviously wrong. I'm just sanity checking which way around it'll go once it's on before I put the second clamp on. Okay, now I'm going to put the second clamp on. Here I put it on the furthest screw, so closest to the edge. Again, that differs based on your greenhouse. Possibly this isn't the right way, but I'll keep an eye on it and see if it's opening correctly. The instructions tell you to mount it so that the angle of the arm is the same as the angle of your roof, and I think that's what I end up with at the end. So I think I've mounted it correctly, but I'll be keeping an eye on it. And I'll need to adjust the temperature dial anyway. Okay, just checking that's all alright. Now it's time to mount it. This involves trying to slide it over the sill, so hopefully you've bolted the plate with just enough of a screw that it doesn't fall off, but not too much so that you can still squeeze it with some force onto the sill. And that's where it clamps it. So now I'm tightening the screws here. I've pushed it, well, I'm still pushing it onto the sill, and once I've got it kind of wrapped around, I screw it in place. Once the bottom bit's done, next you need to do the top bit. It's much easier if you open the window. Here I'm using a couple of pieces of wood to keep it open while I work. Definitely helped, although don't use 2 pieces of wood. You should only use 1, and you'll see why in a little bit. Here I'm just trying to get it onto the top bit, getting the clamp over the top sill. Oh, and that's why you don't use 2. Okay, I've got it onto the top. I did cover the camera a little bit, so you couldn't see it, but it was the same as the bottom. You can see it's not quite lined up now. What I'm trying to do is, I'm not necessarily going for getting the whole thing in the middle of the window, but the top and bottom arm need to be in the same angle. I mean, at the same point in the window. So here I'm just playing around with adjusting the temperature. Activated movement. What you do is you just keep turning the dial until it stays open at whatever your chosen temperature is. So here it's cold, but I was just demonstrating. Wait till it's the right temperature. Keep moving the dial until it stays open to the desired amount at the desired temperature. And that's how that works. And that's done. So here's it from outside, so you can get an idea of what the clamps look like from the outside. And that's that. I'm probably going to adjust these a bit. You can move the clamps backwards and forwards. I'll see how well it performs.